So my favorite Game Boy consoles to mod are actually Game Boy Advance SPs. They have the most functionality in playing Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. They have the genius clamshell design, where after folding, you can throw it in your pocket or backpack without worry of jacking up your screen. But the high quality shells, expanded batteries, and screen kits that are available today result in an absolutely stunning, functional, and looking console. Today, I want to share how to mod the Game Boy Advance SP console using the best current techniques and tips, as it can be a little bit of a confusing process when you just get started. Let's go! So let's talk about what we're going to need before we get started. We're going to need a source, an original Game Boy Advance SP. This one doesn't turn on, but maybe we'll find out later on in the video. Let's check it out. Then I recommend Funny Playing. This is a Funny Playing mirror shell. I think they look great. And then we have the transparent buttons and membranes and the IPS screen kit. Just a little note, if you're buying a screen kit from one manufacturer, such as Funny Playing, you want to make sure that your shell is also from the same manufacturer to make sure that the fit of everything will be correct. And go ahead and open with a tri-point screwdriver. I'm gonna check out that battery, maybe get some spicy pillows going on. I rate this one maybe a 2 out of 10. It's in pretty good condition. Go ahead and open that Game Boy. Let's see what kind of condition we got today. We got a little bit of, we got a little root beer on the game reader right here, but nothing, no corrosion or anything, and it's looking pretty clean. Okay, so the ribbon cable wasn't connected to the ZIF connector, so that's probably the problem why it wasn't turning on. I confirmed off camera that this is working, so we're good to move forward. We want to save the speaker pad, especially with the transparent shells. You want to make sure that that is present in the new shell. Now let's go ahead and remove those plastic screw covers. Now since I don't have any plans for this OEM shell, I don't care if it gets damaged in the process, but it's pretty easy to scratch the shell or screw covers, so if you want to preserve them, you want to make sure you use something other than metal, such as a toothpick or a plastic pick or something. In this case, I'm just going to use tweezers. And once you remove the 5 screws that are holding the screen cover in place, there's one more underneath the ribbon cable that you're going to want to remove. Now the only purpose we have in disassembling the whole SP is to harvest the hinges, which we're going to do next. Now the biggest difference you're going to notice in the screens is one's holographic and the SP doesn't kind of match the original font of the original screen. Kind of bugs me, but it is what it is. I think it still looks okay. You're going to want to preserve and be very careful with these screen hinges because we're going to use this on the new shell. Now you're going to want to use a plastic flat face tool. In this case, I'm using a plastic spudger, and go ahead and press that flat face against the hinge on the inside of the shell. Now you're going to want to carefully get a thin screwdriver, gently press. Now you see when we remove the black hinge, we broke off one tooth of the clip retainer. If you break off only one tooth, it's still functional and still usable, and we're going to continue to use this in this new build. And you'll notice there's a black and white hinge. You're going to want to keep track of which one goes on which side of the clamshell. The way I remember this is white is the right hinge and black is the left hinge. Now take a moment to clean off any dirt or grime on the motherboard itself. And as a slightly more advanced option, it's highly recommended that you clean the power switch itself. Inside of the power switch, you can have a lot of carbon buildup that can impede the electrical flow and make the Game Boy Advance unit malfunction. I'm planning on putting a video together outlining this process in the future. Now let's get to the exciting step where you put everything together. Gather all the components that we harvested from the old SP, and also include all of the new components such as this Funny Playing mirror SP shell. It's packaged pretty well and the finish on this is gorgeous. Also, this E-clip has been put on the battery retainer screw already, which is a huge plus. We have the hinge covers, we have the screw covers for the screen shell, and the light pipe. All these screws are Phillips heads, which is a big plus. I get really confused when I'm putting the screws. Which screw should I use? There's only 2 screws included in this Funny Playing kit. You have short and long Phillips head screws. Now the first step is put the cartridge shield on the bottom plate of the SP shell. You want to get 2 long screws to put inside. Go ahead and grab your Phillips head screwdriver and drive those in. We have the compression fit for this nut that you can place in the bottom shell. Alright, let's change those hinge covers. They can be kind of tricky. You have to press pretty hard to get them off. I know you can do it. Everybody here is a gamer. We have that finger strength. not that hard. Now we gotta place the new ones on. And a lot of these parts from Funny Playing can come with the runners still attached. So a lot of these Funny Playing buttons come with the runners from the mold still attached. You can go ahead and use some side cutters to go ahead and cut those off cleanly. Just like we remove them, you go ahead and slide them on the same way. Now we have the new hinge covers installed. Let's go ahead and put them onto the shell itself. Now the first step you want to take is take the two pieces of the shell as shown here, put them together, and then insert the hinges as shown. Now if you take a close look at each of the hinges, there's two sets of notches of different widths. You can go ahead and look inside of the mating feature in the shell, and you can see that so make sure that those notches align before you put in the hinge, and they should go in pretty easily. And go ahead and place the second one the same way. And bam guys, we got it. In my opinion, that's one of the hardest parts of this build, so if you got this far, I'll pat yourself on the back. The way you can make sure that you've installed these correctly is go ahead and give the shell a good clamp. If it snaps closed and stays closed, then you know that you've installed it the right way. If it kind of stays open when you clamp it shut, then you know if you've installed them backwards or if something went wrong, and you're gonna have to take a closer look at them. Alright, now we're ready to put the screen in. So the screen's just a rectangle, and it should fit in the corresponding feature in the top shell. And of course, anytime you have a new screen with a plastic cover, you gotta get one of those shots. Dope! Don't worry guys, we got it. And after the screen is put into the top shell, let's go ahead and install the ribbon connector. Just carefully insert the screen side of the ribbon connector into the main chip itself. This part you want to spend some time to make sure that the ribbon connector is completely inserted. Make sure that that dark brown rectangle is equal and there's no crookedness. When you're happy with the connection, go ahead and remove that double-sided tape cover and the rectangular piece of foam, place that directly under the screen itself. The purpose of this is to give that ribbon connector a little bit more support. And then flip that ribbon connector back. Make sure that everything's straight and that ribbon connector goes straight down. And go ahead and adhere that ribbon connector to the screen. And you want to be careful with this guys, because it is a transparent shell, so anything that you do inside of the shell will show. So if you do things crookedly or wrongly, then it's going to bother you forever. So take your time when doing this. You're going to want to coil the ribbon connector and put it through the hinge as shown. And guys, I love clamping this clamshell. You got to do it 3 times every single time. It's so satisfying. Now as we pull the ribbon connector all the way through, we can go ahead and grab the hinge cover and place it as shown. After it's placed, put a long screw in and drive it so it's secure. And today we're going to use one of these decorative PVC plates that you can get from the Funny Playing store. I think they look pretty good with the foam. And the thing about the IPS screen is that it doesn't completely fill the inner part of the shell. And so that piece of foam is kind of necessary, because without it, you can press the screen in, like if you're wiping it clean or something, and it'll depress in, you can physically press the screen in. So without the foam and the piece of PVC, it just kind of holds it in place a little bit more. Go ahead and clamp the shell closed and drive in each of the screws as shown. Go ahead and hinge test that baby all over again. Oh, so satisfying. So here we have the buttons with the runners. Go ahead and cleanly cut each of those with a pair of side cutters. And while this is going on, I just want to say thank you to all you that watch my videos and support the channel. I appreciate every single one of you. I really enjoy doing these videos, and all of your support makes it possible for me to continue to do those, so thank you. Alright, now break out the soldering iron. This mod doesn't have too much soldering. You pretty much have one wire, and you just have to terminate the wire at 2 different joints. So this first one is on the ribbon connector. Go ahead and place a little bit of solder on the iron and dab it on that pad. And then go ahead and place the wire horizontally so it doesn't interfere with that connector that it's going to plug into. Go ahead and pull test that and make sure it's secure. Alright, grab that clean motherboard, and the other side of the wire is going to terminate onto the motherboard, into the pad labeled Q12B. So go ahead and grab some solder and your soldering iron, and let's pre-tin that pad. And one of the other hardest parts of this mod is reconnecting that ribbon cable back to the motherboard. There's not a lot of real estate in that cable, but the way I found it to be easiest is you pull on that ribbon connector until you feel some resistance, and then hold it with your thumb. And this is a ZIF connector, a zero insertion force connector, where you can just easily slide it in there, and once it's completely inserted, you're going to want to press on the securing tabs. And now we're going to terminate the other side of that wire again to the Q12B pad. And you don't have a lot of real estate with that ribbon connector, and so you kind of have to work at awkward angles to do this. So you want to bend the wire so that's not in the way of the membranes or buttons. go ahead and place each of those buttons in their respective holes. This is that part where you want to make sure you have that speaker cover, that little cloth thing, place it and then place the speaker in after it. Place each of the corresponding membranes and you should be good to go. Also the power switch, don't forget the light pipe itself. It has a note about the volume slider cover. So these either do or don't come off. If they come off, you can pull them and they'll come off fairly easily. But if you pull on it and it doesn't want to come off, if you go too hard, you're gonna have a sad day and you're gonna break that volume slider. So worst case, you're gonna be stuck with that OEM gray color, which is not that big of a deal since it's on the side, you don't really see it. Next, let's install those L and R buttons. So go ahead and gather all the components you need. You're gonna need one of those bars, a spring, and then the L and R buttons themselves. Every single time I install these, I usually have to remind myself by looking at the OEM shell and seeing how they're put together. You can see that the spring arm lays in a little channel on the L or R button. Line that up and then you go ahead and put that post right through the hole in spring. And I like to do that with both the L and R button so that they're ready to pop in. Once you have them ready, grab the bottom part of the shell and then drop those into the holes. You're gonna wanna use a pair of tweezers to pull that spring arm into the retaining clip on the shell itself. And be careful, these spring arms can really stab you. They're pretty sharp, they're pretty little. So be careful. And alright guys, let's go ahead and screw that motherboard into the shell with the 3 Phillips head screws. I'm gonna open it up, make sure that all the buttons work, nothing's pinched, the wires aren't in the way. This looks good to go. Alright, time for the big assembly. Go ahead and put the shells together. Make sure everything sits flush. And then we can reinsert the 4 long screws here to keep the shells together. Now you're going to want a short screw right at the front near the cartridge hole. And a short screw right under the battery. We're going to go ahead and pop in the old battery. It was in fair condition and we can always upgrade it in the future with something like a Mako battery. Dang, all right, we got it working. So this is where you test it, make sure you're happy with everything. Go ahead and test the brightness button. You should have 8 different levels of brightness. And once you're happy with your build and everything is good, then you can look at these screw covers for the top shell. You'll notice on these funny playing screw covers, number 1, they do not have any adhesive. Number 2, there's 2 sizes. You're gonna have 2 that are meant for the 2 top left and right holes, and they're going to act as the main cushion when you clamp the clamshell together. You go ahead and pop those in the hole. You want to use a fair amount of force so that you really get them inside of the hole and engaged. Alright, we got those 2 big ones installed. Clamp it together, make sure it works right, and then you can insert the smaller ones into the 3 other holes. Again, you're going to want to really push it in there. And the thing I found is those screw covers actually just pop out. So we're going to try to engage them a little bit more with this plastic spudger. You don't want to use anything that's going to scratch or damage those screw covers. So just remember, be very gentle with it. Alright, and we built it. Last thing to do is to put that Nintendo logo onto the top shell. And guys, you can't screw this one up. You gotta do it super straight or it's gonna bother you forever. Nice, and we're styling. Great job guys. If you got to the end of this tutorial to finish your build, be proud of it, be happy about it. And some of you might have some problems. And so the guys at the Gameboy Discord have put together this wiki page and it'll outline some common issues that you may have with any one of your Game Boy consoles and then the most common fixes involved in those issues as well. Super great resource. I recommend it. I'll leave a link in the description below, but it's a really good resource to troubleshoot any sort of problems that you may face. So one of the most common issues when I mod Game Boy Advance SPs are power issues. One of the most common ones being flip it on, the power light will flicker on and then shut off really quick. But with some of these more common issues, I plan to do videos in the future outlining how to do them, how I solve them, just to kind of help you guys out a little bit more. Also, I want to cover a couple mods that are involved too. So throughout this video, you probably saw the red SP, which has the LEDs installed. This is a LED board that I got from Funny Playing, and it's a super easy install. It's going to be in a video I feature in the future, but as a quick look, it looks super clean, they're super customizable, and really awesome. There's another popular mod for the Game Boy Advance SPs, and that's a USBC power charging mod. This involves removing the original proprietary SP charger port. Here's a quick reference of the pin out, and you'll notice the only pin involved in charging is pin 2. And so when you get into a lot of the USB-C mods, some will have every pin to where you can have audio. If you wanted to have a USB-C to audio jack converter, you could use headphones. These charging ports need a spacer, and a lot of times these spacers are sold as 3D printed parts, which I think look kind of ugly. So the only one I can recommend is the Funny Playing, which comes with a bunch of colors that match the shells that they also sell. But I can speak from experience that this mod is a little bit more difficult to do. Each time I've done this mod, I've had issues. It's a little bit more advanced, but some of the mods also just have one of the pins, and that's involved for charging only, which is meant to decrease the difficulty of assembling this mod. And at the end of the day, with the USB-C charging mod, you're just holding yourself back from holding one of these, a USB-C to USB-A cable, when you could just be using one of these, where you have the proprietary SP charger to USB-A charging cable. That works with any stock Game Boy Advance SP, and I actually highly recommend just using one of those. They're cheap, they're reliable, and you don't have to get involved with removing the proprietary charging port at all. And feel free to check out my other social medias. I have a TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, where I try to post regularly on certain builds that I'm working on, or just other cool stuff that I'm working on. Alright, and that's it, guys. We completed this Game Boy Advance SP IPS mod tutorial, and today we learned how to mod the system using all of the best current practices with the best mod kits out there. Please subscribe, like, comment on my videos. Appreciate you. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you continue to have a great week, and we'll see you later. Take care.